I just try to explain shortly that we have 10 partners from 10 countries, from WB6, 6 partner, and from B4, from Slovakia, Czechia, Poland, and Hungary. So this project is supported with the Visegrad Fund. We are in the second phase of realization. Our first result was a very successful webinar about non-tariff barriers organized in December last year, and we are very close to finish our the most important part. It is research about CEFTA and lesson learned from B4 towards WB6, and the ebook will be finished soon, so we will present it on the public in our conference in mid-September in Podgorica, but also before that on some online events or maybe here in Montenegro. So this is our second event, and our topic today is from CEFTA to the EU single market, lesson learned from B4 towards WB6, which means Serbia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, North Macedonia, and Kosovo. You know, we are all part of this free trade region, and now we try to find the model how to go further with this deepening of European economic integration. So we will have 2 panels as agreed. We have 7 very interesting, and for the first block, for the first block, we will have 3 presentation, and the facilitator will be from the Robert Schuman Institute from Budapest, and I like to invite my colleagues Alessandro D'Onofrio to join us, and of course I will co-host later presenter for the first block. So it is enough from my side. I do hope that it will keep your attention, all of you. You will enjoy the presentation, and of course you can delegate the questions for that. So Alessandro, now you will be the facilitator of first block. Please follow our time management, and the stream is yours.
Thank you very much, Professor Đurović, and good afternoon, everyone, ladies and gentlemen, and our distinguished speakers today. As Gordana introduced me, I'm Alessandro D'Onofrio, project manager at the Robert Schuman Institute in Budapest. I will be the moderator of this first panel, and as you may know, we will have 3 guests, speakers, and talking about giving their contribution and their findings about the experience of the V4 countries regarding the CEFTA and access to the EU single market. I will introduce briefly our guests today, and then I will give as agreed, each of our speakers will have kind of 12-13 minutes to present, to have a presentation and show us their findings and their research. And after that, we will have a discussion among us. Please, if you have questions at the end of the discussion, just raise your hand with the application. So our first speaker is Sharka Shope, and she's the director of the Institute for Politics and Society. She holds a doctoral degree and an engineering degree and master degree from the University of Economics in Prague. And she also holds a master degree at from the University of Jean Moulin, Lyon 3. In 2020, Sharka was elected a member of the board of directors of the European Liberal Forum, think tank of the ALDE party. Following her presentation, we will have Dr. Laszlo Arva. He's a friend of the Robert Schuman Institute, and we already had the opportunity to work together in several occasions. Professor Arva has a very long career, and I will just say a few things about him. So he graduated at the University of Karl Marx in economics. The university supposed now is the Corvinus University, changed name. Then he was visited the American Small Business Agency in the 90s and the Small Business Development Centers. And he also worked at the Hungarian embassy in Paris, and his French is perfect, I can assure that. And beside these appointments, he was also the general director of the Hungarian Tourism Office. And now he's a professor at the ESCA since '96, and worked also visiting professor at the Corvinus University in Budapest. Our last speaker will be Agnieszka Peczynska. I hope I pronounce it correctly. And Agnieszka is a junior economist at the CASE, so the Center for Social and Economic Research in Warsaw. And she also studied data analysis and economics at the Bocconi University in Italy, from where I come from, and has been involved in several research projects and impact assessments for national ministries and the EU institutions. Her main area of expertise covers econometric modeling and regional economy. So after this brief presentation, I will give the floor to our fourth speaker, so Sharka, and let's try to keep the timing as agreed. That will be better, and we will have a more fruitful discussion at the end. Thank you very much.
Hello, everyone. Do you hear me? Yeah. Sorry. Yes. Hello. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for a very kind introduction. Since we are quite limited by time, I will keep it short. I will try to say the most important points. As it was mentioned, this project is going for a while, and there was a study where we try to compare the regional cooperation between the 4 Visegrad countries and the 6 Western Balkan countries, with a specific focus on the relationship. Between the Czech Republic and the Western Balkan countries, and it included the 2 groups' path to EU integration and the V4's efforts to share its experiences in the Central European Free Trade Agreement. And it continued with the European single market, focusing on the contrast between the CEFTA and ESM.
Sharka, do you like to share a presentation with us, or I could do it instead of you?
Sure. If you want to share the presentation, sure.
Okay. Do you see the presentation?
Yes, perfect.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I think we can actually go on like the second or third slide, because the beginning is we can stay here, like the purpose of CEFTA. Well, as we know, the creation of CEFTA was in 1992, and it had its purpose to promote countries of the V4 succession to the EU, which was considered to be successful in several regards. Because it was in their best interest to join the EU at the time. And the countries needed to reestablish their regional economic framework to fulfill certain criteria. Maybe if you can go on the next slide, please. And this had the effect of reducing trade barriers, introducing reforms, building modern institutions, and increasing privatizing measures, which in turn led to greater economic growth and foreign trade amongst the member states. Maybe next slide, please. And as the countries ascended to the EU under this framework, member states came and left. And in 2004, V4 countries exited CEFTA, and in 2006, Moldova and members of the Western Balkan countries joined with the same objective. But prior to joining CEFTA, the Western Balkan economies were more linked in several free trade agreements, but these were not explicitly fruitful, as each country lacked the political will to cooperate. And several efforts were made by the EU to promote stability within the region. And in 2006, Western Balkan countries finally joined CEFTA, which replaced over 30 bilateral trade agreements with just one, which is very effective. And however, CEFTA 2006, in comparison to CEFTA, has been seen as less successful, as none of the Western Balkan countries have made it into the EU, despite having been within the framework for 3 years, more than it took for the V4 countries to reach EU accession. And this, however, is the result of member countries' lack of motivation to cooperate and further integrate their economies, considering CEFTA would significantly increase trade with the EU. And the V4's cooperation model was created through slow and organic development, incrementally expanding areas of cooperation over time. And it has sought to be a top-down project that communicates shared values and interests between the 4 countries. And the main characteristic of their cooperation is their annual rotating presidency, where each country submits a program for the year, providing an agenda, which is a good framework for cooperation. And after a period of relatively low cooperation between 1993 and 1998, due to its non-institutional nature, the V4 pursued projects to promote closer cooperation, such as the establishment of the only institution of the group to date, the International Visegrad Fund. And the V4, while serving as an inspiration for the Western Balkans by way of its successful cooperation through a loose political agenda, still remains more successful than Western Balkans in that regard. This is because the V4 created political cooperation first and economic cooperation later, rather than the other way around, like Western Balkan countries group was established. And the cooperation of both political and economic is still lacking in the Western Balkans, which is necessary if they hope to make progress towards EU accession. And if you want to use the Visegrad group as a role model, it can be through their process of EU accession, as the 2 groups are similar in their pre-accession issues. Both joined CEFTA, aiming at establishing free trade amongst member states and following in the footsteps of the International Visegrad Fund, and taking insight from V4 experts on the fund. For the Balkan countries, who established the Western Balkan Fund, which has seen the most success in terms of cooperation amongst member states. And still, there remains several key differences between the V4 and the Balkan group that prevent the same process that work for the V4 to work the same for Balkans. And it's the V4 prior to CEFTA was relatively homogeneous economic development, and was in general more willing to cooperate. And additionally, Balkan region has several unresolved disputes that prevent further cooperation, amongst other differences from the V4. And while the Berlin process, an initiative of the EU to help promote the Western Balkans cooperation, has been helpful, there are limitations on the amount of external support which can be given to Western Balkan, as the key issue lies within the cooperation of the countries itself. And if you look at the Czech Republic, because I'm from the Czech Republic, so despite having left CEFTA in 2004, the Czech Republic, as a member of the V4, continues to empower Balkan countries in several focus areas. Investment and expertise coming from the Czech Republic has seen the region greatly benefit in terms of infrastructure, agriculture, and digitalization. And these Czech initiatives reflect the V4's mission to advance sustainable regional cooperation and transferring knowledge to advance Western Balkans. And however, the Czech economy was hit hard by the COVID, which is still seeking revival today. This subsequently affected the amount of investment going into Western Balkans. And a journey towards the European single market could be described as like the framework for CEFTA 2006 remained the same as the original CEFTA, with its primary objective being to prep member countries for integration into EU single market. And studies have shown differing opinions on the effectiveness of the agreement for Western Balkans. Some saying it's oversimplistic, others saying there were noticeably positive effects and is a good fit. And nonetheless, it's clear that CEFTA 2006 is moving at a much slower pace than its predecessors, and changes need to be made to speed up the process of EU integration. There has been significant progress towards Western Balkan integration over the past few decades, despite the relatively slow pace of activity. And the Berlin process has been heralded as one of the biggest political achievements, acting as a platform for EU and Western Balkan members to meet at an annual high-level summit. And the Regional Youth Cooperation Office has also been helpful in promoting peaceful cooperation and understanding amongst the future generations for Western Balkans countries. And the common regional market, which was accepted at the 2020 Berlin Process Summit, is a huge step towards the Western Balkan countries coming closer to EU markets. And this is a very ambitious project, but nonetheless a great move towards cooperation within the region. And the plan includes 4 focus areas: regional trade, investment, digital and industrial areas, with hopes to bolster the digital area in particular. And there are several goals of common regional market, all which aim at making the region more attractive and competitive to EU markets while promoting regional cooperation with a tight deadline of 2024 and an ambitious agenda. The region will surely have a difficult task ahead of them, but there are the most important commitments. So there are like several important commitments made within this plan, and that pose a challenging tasks. And problem is that due to unequal economic development and income levels, achieving the free movement of persons poses a unique challenge for the region. And regarding the labor force, evenness and pre-existing animosities between countries, maybe another challenge. And another challenge is definitely reducing the cost of regional payments in preparation for joining the single euro payment area, as some countries have already adopted the euro and may need to change to different currency before their accession to the EU. And CEFTA and the Regional Cooperation Council must also become more efficient to deliver more tangible results to meet the 2024 deadline. And the prospect of joining the EU is a motivating force behind these countries trying to overcome these challenges, but that motivation can only go so far. And it's up to the countries within the region to commit to cooperation if they intend to meet the goals of this plan and achieve EU membership. And just shortly about the COVID, the COVID pandemic posed a unique challenge for the global community, as management of the crisis seemed to be trade-off between health and economy. However, focusing on one aspect more than the other resulted in labor shortages, collapse of healthcare system, and economic disruption. And comparing the two regions, it's quite similar in terms of cumulative confirmed cases. And in terms of vaccination, the Western Balkans was well behind the EU and the V4, as Serbia had the highest percentage of the population vaccinated at 44%, while 3 out of 4 V4 countries were over 50% vaccinated. the economic effects of also like the economic effects of the COVID-19 pandemic were severe in both the V4 countries and the Balkan countries, as both regions faced the huge economic downturns. However, Western Balkan countries were in a worse position than the V4, with travel bans, preventing tourism and threatening jobs, amongst other unique factors. And V4 countries had more resources at their disposal, so in general, they were better off. And the Organization for Economic Cooperation has provided post-COVID policy suggestions for the Balkan region, and like the new plan, they want to help booster the region's digital transformation, amongst other items, while a lot of these suggestions are going to be difficult for the region to carry out because of how expensive they will be. A lot of support can be expected from the EU, who is a strong advocate of the OECD suggestions. And just so to conclude, like comparing the experience of the Visegrad group with the Western Balkan 6 countries in terms of developing the regional cooperation, offers deeper insight into the protracted EU accession negotiations of the later. And the Western Balkan followed the path of the V4, starting in CEFTA and working its way up to the new plan, which can be the final stepping stone towards the EU single market. And institutions like the International Visegrad Fund and the Visegrad Youth Forum were also replicated, and signaling that behind the success of the Visegrad countries, there is a genuine and a voluntary cooperation, not just in an economic sense, but also in the civil society. In this sense, a collaboration between V4 and Balkan countries can be observed in funding joint projects through the International Visegrad Fund. And the ongoing COVID pandemic had adverse effects on both regions, but there are already plans to not waste a good crisis. This means that the both regions.
Please, Sharka, I need to ask you for shortening because of others. We have 12 minutes.
Sure.
We just have maybe 1 more minute left, if it's possible to close quickly.
Sure. So just these 2 regions plan to incorporate green transition and digitalization into the process of rebuilding their economies, which is another potential field for their cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you.
So thank you very much, Sharka. And I will now pass to the next speaker, Professor Arva. I don't see you the screen.
Professor, I put a co-host for you if you like to presentation, or I can do it instead of you.
I try to do myself. If it's not working, I give it to you. Oh, I think it's something happening as far as I know. That one. Do you see it?
Yes, you can
yes.
see.
Yes,
to the beginning. Okay. And I go to have a bigger one. Hopefully it's coming. Yes, I got it.
It's okay.
So, okay, thank you very much. So I also would like to introduce you my colleague Szabolcs, who was my partner in writing this text, and we are working very often together. And you know, as my specialty is foreign direct investment and transnational companies, we work very often with Szabolcs on this topic. And in spite of the fact that he just came back from Africa and got some very bad problem infection in the throat, so speaking is very difficult for him. But at the same time, I would like to pass this floor to you, Szabolcs, for 2 minutes or two words.
Thank you so much. I have a terrible sore throat. Imagine, you know, when we talk a lot and when we deliver a lot of lectures, sometimes this happens to us. No fever, my nose is not running, but I simply cannot speak. This is what I can tell you. Let me tell you that I'm so happy to be here today, this afternoon. I truly enjoyed working with Professor Arva. I was following the first presentation, and I am pretty much sure that the other presentations will be equally valuable. And well, I will follow this afternoon with you. But if you don't mind, I will remain mostly tight-lipped because, you know, my voice is not really nice for your ears, I guess.
Thank you very much, Szabolcs. So I just jump into the middle. And, you know, as I mentioned, I was mainly working with foreign direct investments and globalization and tourism at the same time. I think you hear me. Okay, good. If you have some problem of hearing or seeing, please notify me and I try to rectify the problem. So anyway, my point is that we are here. And my problem is that when we have a problem, it's a very good occasion to find a solution. If we don't have a problem, it's no use of finding solution. But if we have a problem, the best way is to go and find a solution. And we arrived to a point that the conservative approaches are not working anymore after COVID and after the war. But we need new, innovative, and brave solutions. And I think that today the risks are very big, but tomorrow it will be perhaps much bigger. So that's why I think we got to do something now. And I have to do something with this, okay, because I can't see my present. Okay, good. So it's very interesting that those steps which seem to be irreal yesterday, today might be possible, or tomorrow might be unavoidable. So this is the after COVID time and after war, or in between war time. So, and I think that when we are getting out from COVID problems, then we have to find good solutions, and similar consequences are in the problem of war. And I think one of the the highest problem is today.
Professor, do you like to put some other slides? We are still at the beginning.
Okay, I do it. Okay, good. Thank you very much. So the problem is that today we have too long global value chains, and that's why because of the pandemics and the war, we have the problems of these too long global value chains, and the transnational companies are suffering of that. And also we have the problem of the tourism. Because of the pandemics and the war, tourism collapsed, and lots of tourism service providers have lost revenues. And I think that when we are looking at West Balkan, this would be a very good opportunity to find solutions for those worldwide problems. And when we are going to change to green tourism, this will be a very important thing. And also we can renovate global value chain. So I think that it's very important that nearshoring, as we call it, might happen to the West Balkan countries, and this will be advantages for the West Balkan countries and also for the transnational companies in Western Europe. Something happened, I can't see my presentations. Okay, what is it? Sorry?
We can't see the presentation either. Maybe now. Now, yes.
No, okay. I go down a little bit. Perhaps it's something happened, but I try to go down and. Okay, so that was where it stopped. So this is very important that nearshoring should be done just in order to instead of offshoring production to Southeast Asian countries or much farther places, or travel to a very far destination, we can find much better places for. And this is my favorite slide. This is European Union, and here we have the radius where lots of things can be done. And you know that here we have West Balkan countries, and those are not very far. So that's why from the European Union, transnational companies can delocalize the activities to this part of the continent, and also instead of flying very far, tourists also can come to these former Yugoslav countries. And also this is same for the problems of war. Not only COVID-19 can cause problems, but also Ukraine war, and also we have lots of embargoes which disrupting a global value chain, and this can be rectified by going into these not very far away places. And here we have the uncertainty is increasing in the world, and this is the uncertainty index, which was increasing very much because of the Ukrainian war. And exactly too long global value chains are now hindering continuous production of the transnational companies. The solution can be to shorten global value chains. The question is, how can we do it and where to put the parts of global value chains? This is very important for tourism as well, because by that we can reduce carbon dioxide emission, greenhouse generating gas emissions, also in manufacturing and also in tourism. And exactly that's why it would be very important that the European Union should contribute to infrastructural development of West Balkan 6 countries. So my slide disappeared, but I try to find it. Okay. And
Professor Arva, I'm afraid that we can't see your slides moving. I mean, we are still stuck at the third slide. I don't know whether it's a problem also with your.
Can I ask you to do it this presentation instead of me? Some technical problems might have happened in this computer, I suppose. Yes, Gordana. Okay, so this is the beginning. We started there. You can go down if it is possible. A little bit more. I think that that's where we've been, in the 9th slide. And if you go a little bit down, this will be the nearshoring, and that's what we should do. And also go down. This was, as I mentioned, this was uncertainty was increasing, and also exactly solution can be in manufacturing and in tourism at the same time. Go a little bit down. Thank you very much. And this is the role of European Union, which should be very important, helping to develop transportation infrastructure. And exactly, it's very important that in tourism, we also should introduce new philosophy. We have to introduce greener tourism, and we also have to fight against infection. So it's not very good if you put lots of travelers into a long, close place, like it's an airplane, and everyone is getting ill at the end. This is exactly, we don't have yet low emission planes. They are working on it, but we don't have yet. So and if we are waiting for that, it will be a problem. Next one, please. Oh, that's why, yes, exactly. We have to make greener tourism, and that's why we have here this electric high-speed train. This is in France, so I think that the technology is already existing. We need only some investments, and I think that European Union should do this investment, and that they might be very happy of that. So exactly, and this is also important when we are speaking about the development of tourism. Local economy and local tourism can develop together, and that's exactly the point when we might have greener tourism. And this is a picture from Austria. We can learn a lot in Austria. They have this local economy and local tourism development together, and this is quite good. And I made this picture when I was working in tourism sector, and the question was how to spread tourist geographic. That's also very important to fight against over tourism, because if everyone goes to a certain place, this make this tourism destination unlivable, not only for the local persons but also for the tourists at the same time. And also this is what we call meta or mega destinations. We should find the place of different destinations together, and we have to organize the circulation of tourists between the different parts of this destination.
Professor Arva, I need to ask you to maybe 1 minute and
okay, not more. We can go down. Thank you very much. And this is very important. A good example from Hungary. This is the use of postmodern marketing in tourism. And go a bit down. And I'm just going to finish it soon. And also we have the young rangers movement in Germany, when they have tourists who are working in the forest, and they like it very much. And this is very good. So it. And also those are the summary and the proposals. I think that it's not enough to develop a little bit to the former stages, tourism and manufacturing. We should find new solutions. We have not enough to rebuild it. We have to renew it, and this will be very good not only for the local economy of the West Balkan countries, but this will be very good also for the transnational companies in the European Union, and also this can reduce pollution, which is also a very good point for European Union. So that's why the major message is that we have to do what is good for European Union at the same time, and we have the references what we were using together. So that's why I think I would like to stress the importance that it's not enough. It's not only enough to do something for the West Balkan countries, but we should keep into mind that this should be advantages for European Union countries and European Union national companies at the same time. So that was what I wanted to tell. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor Arva. I'm sure that there will be a lot of questions considering your presentation, because it's a very, very wide topic. And now I would give the floor to our last panelist, so Agnieszka Pecinska. If you're ready, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I will try to upload my presentation. Just let me know if you can see this.
Yeah, we can see, okay.
Okay.
Yes, we can see.
Okay, great. I hope it will work. If not, please let me know. So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Agnieszka Pecinska, and today I would like to present a view from Poland. I think that my presentation will be complementary to what has already been said by the previous speakers. I would like to show you how the signing of CEFTA accelerated and smoothed our process of integration into EU, and which recommendation we can provide Western Balkan countries with our experience. I would like to start with a short overview of the regional cooperation initiatives for which the integration of Western Balkans to the EU is particularly important. And the Visegrad Forum, of course, organizes every year regular summits. And several years ago, the special Visegrad network of experts on the rule of law and fundamental rights for the Western Balkan was established with the aim to support transformation of this region and help in the accession negotiations. The second initiative is the Free Seas initiative, and the third one already mentioned by the previous speaker, the Berlin process that was established in 2014, which currently the key pillar of cooperation is the EU connectivity agenda. That includes mutual initiatives on, for example, reconstruction of seaports, railway lines, and connectivity in general, as well as development of digital infrastructure. Continuing with Berlin process, I would like to shortly elaborate on Polish presidency in 2019 and its results. The pillars of our agenda were connectivity, security, economy, and civic dimension. The Western Balkan Summit that took place in Poland, in Poznan in 2019, brought some important results, such as connectivity package, also the support for key infrastructure project, as well as European Commission declaration of financial support to SME in Western Balkans. And also the memorandum to establish Regional Institute of Sustainable Technologies in Montenegro was signed. The support that we offered to Western Balkans included financial support For infrastructure projects, also students from the region were offered scholarship, for example, in European College in Natalin in Warsaw. The NGOs operating in the region were also offered financial support, for example, Regional Youth Cooperation Office. Also, the institutions supporting the fight against corruption and illegal arms trade. Apart from supporting individual people and institutions, Poland prepared also bilateral instruments that supported Western Balkans countries in their accession process into the EU. And finally, the think tank forum that was initiated by Poland is right now an opportunity to engage Western Balkan countries in a comprehensive evaluation of regional economics of our region. Moving smoothly into the second part of my presentation, I would like to start with two charts to show you the importance of regional trade for European integration. The first chart is the geographical distribution of the Polish export in selected years. It is important to remind that after the dissolution of the Council of Mutual Economic Assistance in 1991, Poland, along with other Eastern Europe countries, was not a member of any regional trade organization. Its role in the international trade was very weak, and the stage of economic development, as well as structural problems, posed a significant challenge to the Polish authorities. But the Visegrad Summit in 1991 and subsequently implemented liberalization rules brought first observable effects already 2 years later in 1993. And this year was the first year for several years in which trade flows between Poland and other CEFTA founding countries did not decrease. In 1993, Visegrad countries accounted for circa 5% of Polish export, while 10 years later, it was already 8%. And at this point, all the provisions eliminating or reducing customs were already in force. Right now, 3 years ago, this share was equal to about 12%. When it comes to import, the similar change is observable. In 1993, Visegrad countries accounted for circa 4% of our imports, while 10 years later, it was already 7%, and it was stable in next years. What's important to mention is that the increase in significance of bilateral trade flows with CEFTA Visegrad countries occurred as a result of decreasing significance of other trade partners, so EU 15 and the rest of the world. It was the case also of export presented in the previous slide. When it comes to the tail data comparing 2 years, 1994 and 2003, we can see that in 2003, the highest value of traded goods was exported to Czech Republic, and it was 5 times more than 10 years before. The most dynamic upsurge was noted for Slovakia. It was over 7 times more. The similar case was for import. And overall, the value of intra-CEFTA Visegrad 4 trade was 5 times higher in 2003 than in 1994. So the provisions were successful. The conclusions stemming from this short overview of the Polish perspective on the profits of participation in CEFTA may suggest that the example of successful cooperation of Visegrad countries under CEFTA can potentially reflect the opportunities waiting for the Western Balkan countries in their intra-regional free trade agreement. If this agreement is built on EU rules and standards, the CEFTA for Visegrad 4 countries had demonstrated that this kind of integration may become a permanent part of multilateral cooperation, not only in trade, but also as a stabilizing economic factor. And it's important that even after our accession to the EU, the share of Visegrad countries in our trade was still very high, and it did not decrease after 2004. It's also important that small countries are likely to expand trade through liberalization towards the larger trade partners, and it was the case of CEFTA, and it also might be a case for trade agreements between Western Balkans in their free trade agreement and larger partners such as, for example, the EU. Leaving the CEFTA with Visegrad 4 countries, member states aside for a moment, I would like to focus now on the dynamics of trade between Poland and the Western Balkan countries in last years. And the current bilateral trade relation between Poland and Western Balkan countries differ in terms of volume, type of value, and type and value of traded goods. As you can see, the highest trade turnover in recent 4-5 years was reported for Serbia. Also, the value of both exported and imported goods in the whole 5-year period exceeded the value reported for other Western Balkan countries. On the next slide, we can see the import data. It's also the case that Serbia is the strongest partner among from the Western Balkan countries. And when it comes to the trade turnover, the similar situation. In 2020, effects of slowing down induced by the COVID-19 pandemic were visible in the slight decrease of Polish trade turnover with Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, and Serbia. However, we can say that the trends observable for previous years suggest the increasing importance of all CEFTA countries in Polish trade flows. The more detailed data of our trade with Western Balkan countries is presented here. But I would like to highlight here that the pandemic showed also as a high level of economic and trade interconnectedness between Western Balkan countries and EU countries. The European Union remains a leading trade partner for all Western Balkan countries, accounting for circa 70% of total trade of Western Balkans. However, this relationship is not a balanced one because the Western Balkan countries constitute just 1.4% of EU's trade. So the this proportion is very, very high. And continuing with the COVID-19 pandemic, these 2 years has sharply highlighted the need to rethink EU's participation in the global value chains, as said Professor before, mostly in terms of geographic location of its suppliers. And this is, of course, the main prerequisite for sustainability and resilience of our trade to have a stable global value chains. Those 2 years also proved that regional organizations such as CEFTA play an important role in the process of economic integration. Going more into the detail of successful initiatives that were undertaken during the pandemic, for example, our green lines that were approved in 2020 to extend the concept of green lines to the Western Balkans. And it was made to ensure the fast flow of goods in the region. And the Commission is committed to address the structural bottlenecks at the borders between Western Balkans and EU countries in the future. I can see, Alessandra, that you are, I have to finish,
I know what I'm going to ask you.
Okay, okay. So there, so I will quickly go to the last slide. So the recommendations that we have for the Western Balkan countries. So engage more actively in regional initiatives such as those mentioned, Berlin Process or the cooperation with Visegrad 4 countries. Make better use of the EU programs that aim at developing regional infrastructure. Strengthen the cooperation between Western Balkans and EU bodies, for example, within the Regional Cooperation Council. Also focus on non-trade barriers that I didn't have time to develop on that, but this is very important to also notice that non-trade barriers can also pose a significant challenge in developing the free trade agreements, for example. And the last one, take appropriate steps toward the inclusion of the region into the common area of competition policy after the adoption of an appropriate section of the EU law by all Western Balkan countries. So thank you very much. This is my co-author who was not able to join us today, but he was also very eager to take part, but he couldn't. So thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much, Agnieszka. And I think we have time for 2-3 questions, not more, because we are running out of time. Someone would like to start asking a question to our speakers today? No one? Okay, maybe I will try to ask.
One lady,
Okay.
Rayla.
Okay, I didn't see the, sorry.
We can't hear you. We can't hear you still. Please put the mic.
Yeah, we can't hear you, Rayla.
You need to do something. Ask to unmute.
Maybe in the meantime, someone else would like to quickly address our speakers with some questions or, I don't know, notes. Okay, we have Mr. Bielic, please. Okay.
I hope.
Yes.
Hello, I hope you hear me.
Yes, we hear you.
Yes, we hear you.
I would like. I'm from Belgrade, Serbia. I would like to thank Professor Đurović for organizing this event, because I'm also a part of the project. And I would like to thank all the presenters for their very insightful presentations. Especially, I would like to refer, I think the second speaker spoke about global value chains and, let's say, need to nearshore the operation from Asia to Europe. Also, I think it's very important that the lady from Poland has shown how the cooperation between Western Balkan countries and the Poland is, let's say, in some way, before the pandemic, the trade relations were improving. And I would like to ask, is that because of the trade preferences, for example, maybe that are in connection to the stabilization and association agreements of these countries? Are the Visegrad countries are now more involved with the trade with Southeastern Europe due to the, let's say, EU membership? And what could we expect when all these countries from the Western Balkans also become members of the EU?
Thank you very much for your question, Mr. Bielic.
I hope you understand my questions. Thank you.
To whom is directed your
first question is to the second speaker, Professor from Budapest,
Okay.
about the nearshoring of the activities in the global value chains. I think this is connected to this, let's say, global disbalance and political relations between, because I think we are in some way in the process of deglobalization, and this will affect also the global value chains. And the second question is for the lady from Poland.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you very much for this question. And I would like to start with the point. Back in the beginning of the 21st century, I participated in an activity. It was a KPMG who was asked by the Minister of Economy that time how it is possible, how can it be to help the changing structure of foreign trade? And the short answer was no way. Simply because a very large percent of Hungarian exportation is coming from the transnational companies. So if the transnational companies are not willing to do anything in the vicinity, it won't happen. So that's why I think that's why I always stress the importance of taking into account the global value chains, because I think that for the time being, for today, it's more and more important for the transnational companies and also for European Union that we have to, the transnational companies should reduce the longness of the value chain. So that's why it's a good possibility to put those activities instead of Southeast Asia to the Balkan countries. So I think so it's not difficult to understand even for the transnational companies that it is a good solution. We only have to push it and we have to spread the information among them. And I think that they will understand it because it's a question of money. And lots of transnational companies has mentioned that instead of optimizing revenue, they have to optimize the assurance of this activity. So if the activity is not sure because the things are not arriving from Southeast Asia, it can be very cheap, but it's not working. So that's why I think that the most important is that we should we should pass the information to European Union and also for the most important transnational companies that let's look around instead of having these activities at the other end of the world. You can come here. This is a very good opportunity. Naturally, for that, lots
Professor
of.
Arva, I need to ask you to be brief in your reply.
Yeah,
because
I did. Alessandro, thank you very much to remind me. I could go into the details for a very long time, but it's completely useless. But that is very important. Those legal backgrounds in these countries which are helping inflow of foreign direct investment and the cooperation between the foreign companies and the local companies is very important. So this should be done. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Arva. Agnieszka, would you like to reply?
Yeah, I try to be short. So considering the question you asked me, I would say that Polish companies after those 2 years of pandemic are rethinking where their suppliers came from, and this is also visible right now after the war in Ukraine started, that we are more focused on supporting the regional economy, and the companies are trying to, for example, free from Russian market, and they are looking for the new suppliers in the EU, not in the Asia or Africa or in America. So I think that this is the opportunity for the Western Balkan companies, for example, to offer these goods just because of this opportunity. And I think that this is very difficult question to say what will happen next if the all Western Balkan countries will become member states of EU, because there are no good models just to estimate the impacts of this situation. But I think that it will be more and more active tie between Poland and Western Balkan countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Agnieszka. I don't know if we have taken contact again with the Rayla. If you want to ask very briefly your question. I'm afraid that we have the same issue than before. Maybe if you
can read it in chat. We have it here.
Yeah,
I received
exactly.
the direct question. So
Okay.
Alessandro, you can read it.
Okay. How CEFTA, WB6, V4 are going to operate in the future? How affected is going to be the Western Balkans countries and the war between Russia with Ukraine? And okay, that's all. I would like to ask maybe to whom would you like to address this question? Or maybe we can have a very brief reply from each of the speakers. Just maybe nod or.
If you like to comment shortly, or we can merge it with final questions on the end of the second panel.
Yeah, maybe you can, each of the speakers can reply very shortly about this. Maybe starting with the Sharka.
Okay.
Sharka, are you here? I can see.
Sure. Sure. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Oh, well, regarding the first part, how CEFTA and Western Balkan countries and before are going to operate in the future, I think it depends mainly on the situation within each region. Because if I may say, even now we four countries, I wouldn't say there is the strongest cooperation among these countries itself. And it's nice to have this gathering or like this initiative. But first we have to start to cooperate among the countries which are the closest to each other, and then we can cooperate more with the other kind of organizations. And how affected is going to be the West Balkan countries by the war between Russia with Ukraine. I don't think that's a question for me, but I guess so it will be kind of similar for us, even like in before countries, because this is like so unpredictable. I can't like answer this like I don't know. No one knows what will happen regarding this. Everyone hopes for the best. Everyone hopes for the least severe consequences. But I don't have a crystal ball, unfortunately.
Thank you very much, Sharka. Professor Arva, really 2 sentences.
Very rapidly, I don't know either anything about the future of this war. So we hope only, as Sharka told. But at the same time, I think that we have to use the opportunities to get into the future. So I think that whenever we have some trouble, we have to use it to have something better than we had before. So I think that this can be regarded as a good opportunity. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Arva. Agnieszka, for closing remarks.
So I totally agree with my previous speakers, with what Sharka said and Professor Arva. I would only add that we also have the opportunity to cooperate in all these initiatives, for example, in Berlin process. So I think that we have to use the tools, the methods that are already in place that we can use, that we can think of. And that's it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much, Agnieszka. I don't know whether we have one more last question, or we can maybe have a break and going to the second panel in 10 minutes.
Alessandro, thank you for managing this first panel.
Thank you very much.
Time management is always an issue, but the topic is definitely very interesting, and we had the opportunity to look at in the very professional presentations of current trends on our topic. So I'd like to thank you all panelists for this block. Maybe 5 minutes break, because we are a little running with the time. 5 minutes break, then we will continue, and Peter will continue with facilitation. Alessandro, thanks again for your...
Thank you very much for the invitation. Thank you. Thank you.
5 minutes break.
So, hello everybody, I'm Petar Ičević from Montenegrin Pan-European Union. In this block, we are going to focus on the views from the Western Balkan countries, namely Bosnia and Herzegovina, Montenegro, and North Macedonia. We are also going to talk about Slovakian experience with CEFTA and EU single market. So without further ado, our first speaker is Bojan Srbinovski from North Macedonia. Bojan is a senior economic analyst at the finance team from Skopje. He holds a PhD in finance from Carlo Cattaneo University in Italy. His research focuses on the topics related to financial institutions and markets. Bojan worked as a teaching assistant at St. Clements of Ohrid University. He was a fellow of the Turkish government, a visiting researcher at the Florida State University, and a recipient of the award of the residency at Rosetta Institute in Sydney, Australia. Please, Bojan, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you, Petar. First of all, I'm happy that I'm part of this project, and I will be speaking on behalf of Finance Think Skopje, and on behalf of my chief economist, Blagica Petreski. And I will go directly to the topic and the research that we have done regarding this project. We gave. I hope that you see the presentation, right?
Yes, we can see it.
Yeah. Okay. If you have problems, please let me know. We gave a brief title like integrating Western Balkan 6 towards integrated EU to picture how our region will integrate while going to be integrated in the European Union. So what we wanted to answer in this research is actually how North Macedonia sees this process of common regional market for the Western Balkan 6 countries, whether it is regional waiting room or it is fast track that will bring all of us closer to the European Union, even inside the European Union. So I will go to the next slide. So briefly, just about the main pillars that the common regional markets assumes is building a regional trade area for the Western Balkan 6, in which we'll be eliminating the unjustified trade barriers, and we will allow free movement of goods, services, capital, and people within the region, in the same spirit as the EU single market predicts. The second pillar is the regional investment area, in which the whole region will be promoted together, and there will be coordinated action between the 6 governments in order to make this region attractive for foreign direct investments. The third pillar is the digitalization and building an infrastructure connectivity, building enough skills and competences for people to use that infrastructure and connectivity, and of course developing digital economy. In the end, the fourth pillar is the regional industrial and innovation area, in which it is concentrated on stimulating innovation, inclusion of domestic economy into the global supply chains, and human capital development. These are the 4 pillars, and we investigated this question, whether on the left side this common regional market means that we are all waiting, and one by one we are trying to enter into the European Union, or the second view is common regional market helps all of us, all 6 countries, and push us to catch up with those that are the closest to the integration of the European Union. So to answer this basic question, actually it's complex question, we analyzed 3 dimensions, 3 aspects of the problem. First is the formal dimension, and we want to answer to what extent common regional market helps in the EU integration of North Macedonia, apart from what Macedonia is doing right now with the EU accession process. The second is political dimension, how common regional market can help us in reducing political frictions, because the main issue probably will be the political will for integrating Western Balkan 6, because we have a lot political frictions inside the region. The common regional market may help overcoming those political issues that we have. And the third one is the economic constraints that exist and that make this project hard to realize. So we focused on these 3 questions. Regarding the first question, we analyzed the progress reports in the multi-annual plan for regional economic area that we are involved right now, and also the action plan for common regional market, and compared with the progress report of European Commission for North Macedonia. So basically, we wanted to see whether the progress that is marked in the common regional market means progress in the European Union integration. And the results are, I will start from the middle, that common regional market is made in the spirit of the EU integration. So it touches upon 20 out of 33 chapters on the criteria for accession of North Macedonia to the European Union. And mainly those chapters relate to building functional market economy and creating a certain level of preparedness to join the European single market. On the other side, there are some parts that are specific to the common regional market, but are not that important for European integration. In such area are mobility inside the region, recognition of qualifications inside the Western Balkan, individual reform action plans. Those are all specific to the common regional market. On the other side, there are some processes that are specific to the EU integration, but not that related to the common regional market. Those are actually issues related to the institutional development. So the protection of fundamental rights, guarantee of democracy and rule of law, those are all important for EU integration, but they are not covered by the common regional market initiative. So that is the small gap that is not covered within the EU integration. So if North Macedonia wants to join EU, needs to work aside from common regional market, plus on institutional development. Regarding the second question, whether the common regional market can help us in resolving the political frictions that we have, we refer to the history of the European Union. If we go back to when the European Union, at the birth of the European Union, we can see that during that time, the countries that entered into the EU club had bigger political problems that we have now in the Western Balkan. So that is explained by the dominant theory of regionalization. Actually means the benefits of joining larger club overcome the costs staying alone aside from that block. So the exporters will push the political landscape to liberalize and join the larger bloc. That's the main issue of this dominant theory of regionalization. Once the process of regionalization starts, it will go on until complete integration. One example that is going on right now is the Open Balkan Initiative, in which Serbia, North Macedonia, and Albania, they're trying to create some level of regionalization. And there are some processes that are going on right now. And we can call that snowballing effect, in which you roll the ball and the ball is increasing. So the process starts with the three countries that the political stake is not that high, because North Macedonia resolved the problem with Albanian minority, and they don't have some huge political issues. Serbia and Macedonia right now, they don't have also some huge political issue. North Macedonia is mainly concerned with the Bulgarian veto right now, but not inside the Western Balkan 6. And Albania and Serbia recognize that they will have big benefit if they work together, because Albania has advantage because of the coastal access, and Serbia has big advantage to integrate and to regionalize because of the market size. The biggest challenge regarding this issue will be whether there is potential for trade. So if the potential for trade between the members is limited, then the pressure imposed by the lost benefit of not belonging to the bloc would be lower. So that means that it will be not that beneficial to join some larger bloc that will be created within Western Balkan 6. So in order to overcome these political frictions, economic benefit of integrating should be high. And the final is the economic challenges. We identified three challenges. First, the limited potential to trade inside the Western Balkan 6. The second is the unequal distribution of gains and losses after integration. And the third one is the disagreement in building strategies for attracting FDIs. If we go on the first issue, whether there is potential to trade within Western Balkan 6, we can see decreasing tendencies. On the left side, we can see how intensely countries in Western Balkans trade with other 5 partners. We can see that Montenegro and Kosovo trade more intensely, moderate levels by North Macedonia and Serbia, Albania and Bosnia. Actually, Serbia and Albania has the lowest percentage, but in the case of...
Just to remind you of the time.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So inside Western Balkan, for now, there are decreasing tendencies and limited potential to trade. Regarding the second issue, the distribution of gains and losses after the integration, the main issue will be whether there is potential to trade because of structural characteristics. Both the manufacturing industries, they're specialized and they're localized, which means that each country has its own industry and it's difficult to trade. Once we integrate, probably the market size of Serbia, the pool of skilled labor, and the infrastructural development will play a major role. But in the end, right now, there is huge competition in attracting FDIs between the countries. And North Macedonia is losing its position. So in order to Macedonia to benefit in attracting new FDIs, needs to enter in this common regional market and go with much coordinated approach in attracting FDIs. So in conclusion, we can see that common regional market is in the spirit of the European Union, and it will help to the countries to join the European Union by the time. Also, common regional market helps in resolving the political confrontations between the members. And regarding the economic dimension, there are some issues that needs to be handled. regarding the equipping the country with skilled labor, building infrastructural development, and of course the constraints by the market size. Thank you.
Thank you, Bojan, very much for your presentation. Our next speaker is Milica Muhadinovic, offering, I guess, a view from Montenegro. She is a proud Pan-European and the youth president at Pan-European Union of Montenegro. She holds a PhD from the Faculty of Economics from the University of Montenegro, where she works as a teaching assistant on the subjects mainly related to the area of macroeconomics.
Sorry, can you hear us?
Yeah, now it's fine. Yeah. We can hear you.
Can you hear us?
Yeah.
Yes, this time we can hear you.
Okay.
Thank you. Milica, please, the floor is yours. Yeah.
Thank you, Petar. Can you hear us?
Yes, we can hear you.
Now we have presentation.
Now we have a presentation just to keep us on the schedule. After the presentations are done, we will have time for discussion.
Hello?
Yeah.
Hello. Okay. I think we are being...
Milica, you can continue. Yeah, sorry.
Okay, thank you, Petar. No worries. I apologize in advance because I have a serious cold. So in case I turn off my camera, just know that I'm sneezing in the background. So it's nothing serious. The internet is fine. Okay, so I'm going to try to give you a perspective from Montenegro, because we all heard our great panelists in the first block about the common regional market and the ties between the V4 countries and EU and Western Balkans countries. So let me start by just presenting something that probably our partners from the now Western Balkans, previous Yugoslavia, mainly know. I'm going to talk about the European perspective and economic trends in Montenegro, then present our trade profile and how we manage the regional trade integration, and give some a brief conclusion and recommendations from Montenegrin side. As I said, probably most of you know that how Montenegro developed after the dissolution of Yugoslavia. Our transition, so-called transition, that is actually still ongoing, started with a period of economic recession that was most seriously affected Montenegro out of the 6 previous member states of Yugoslavia, because Montenegro was very highly dependent on the market that the 6 countries formed in Yugoslavia. And what happened with the dissolution of Yugoslavia, Montenegro actually lost its access to public markets, so the markets to which we exported to. And we were actually traditionally oriented on the production of raw materials and used to import finalized products from that single Yugoslav market that used to count around 23 million people. Montenegro, after the dissolution of Yugoslavia, after the start of the transition recession, which was most severely affected our economy from 1990 to 1996, started to gradually recover and to build its own economic system. So our temptations were how to replace the logic of socialistic self-management economy with the market logic. So how to actually become a functional market economy, which is actually a part of our EU path, and how to adapt our system to market conditions. Then how to, as fast as we could, adjust the dissolution of the Yugoslav market and loss of republic markets of ex-Yugoslavia. Then the period of transition recession that actually they happened at the same time as the UN sanctions that lasted from 1992 to 1995. Then how to escape the social fragmentation and the poverty that was caused by reduction of economic activity after the dissolution, how to actually be able to deal with informal economy, with the rise of informal economy in Montenegro and high unemployment, and of course how to deal with economic and social challenges that actually did have a serious negative impact on the basic system of values that characterize Montenegrin economy. So as I said, Montenegro started to build its own economic system, even when we were in a state union with Serbia. So in July 1999, we stopped transferring part of our custom revenues into the federal budget, and we took charge over our own custom service for the territory of Montenegro. Then in November 1999, with a special deal with German bank, we introduced dual currency system. So we used Yugoslav dinar and we used Deutsche Mark. So we started paying out the pensions and wages and salaries in Deutsche Mark, which actually eased our transition into a new currency. Then Montenegro established its own central bank of Montenegro in 2001. And we took on the task of forming our own foreign trade and customs policy, and actually unilaterally adopted euro in 2002 as our only official tender, our own currency. Then the period from 2000 to 2006, so regaining the independence, was actually the period of gradual economic recovery. And that is the period that we used to strengthen our economic independence. So we can see on this graph the whole observed period from 2006 to 2021. The GDP growth rate in the period from regaining the independence in 2006 to 2021 can be systematized in a few phases to represent our economic trends. So we had a pretty dynamic economic growth after regaining the independence, which we called the investment boom for 3 years, because the average growth rate was 8.7%. Then we had a slight downturn of economic activity, -5.7%, which was due to the global economic and financial crisis in 2008. Then gradual economic recovery, new investment cycle that actually resulted with a slight downturn because of the Eurozone debt crisis. And then COVID-19 pandemic that actually resulted in a pretty severe downturn, which actually resulted in a high growth rate in 2021. And we'll see, you can see also some predictions for the future, for the next few years. Other economic trends worth mentioning are the foreign direct investments that are actually very, very important for the Montenegrin economy. Because they were always important in order to spur the growth of the Montenegrin economy. The case should be that the inflow of foreign direct investments should cover the trade deficit the Montenegrin economy always has, because when you see the numbers of trade between Montenegro and other Western Balkans countries, we only have a positive trade balance with Kosovo. Our trade with all other members of the Western Balkan 6 is actually negative. So you can see on this graph the share of public debt, net FDI, and trade balance as a percent of GDP. You can see the public debt level at 105% of GDP in 2020, which was mainly growing from 2015 when we started building our first part of the highway, which actually brought on the biggest share of the public debt. And then when we look at Montenegro's road to the EU, it is very important for Montenegro. We signed the Stabilization Association Agreement in 2007, which actually served to confirm our orientation that had one main benefit that is actually in force even today, forming the free trade area with the European Union. And then, of course, CEFTA 2006, which started in 2007, which has also been important because European Union and CEFTA member states are actually our most important trade partners. We have been we have the status of candidate country since December 2010, and another favorable moment was the visa liberalization with the EU member states since December 2009, similar to other countries in the Western Balkans, and accession negotiations that have been ongoing since June 2012. So far, 3 out of 33 or 35 chapters are provisionally closed, while all the chapters are open. Then Montenegro's trade profile, we have been a fully fledged member of the World Trade Organization since April 2012. Then Montenegro is probably the most open to trade economy in the region of the Western Balkans. So we are extremely prone to international trade, which is actually badly reflected on our trade balance as part of GDP, because actually in 2020 it was at the level of 26% of GDP, I mean a deficit. So the ratio of Montenegro's trade, exports plus imports in goods and services to GDP, was 93% in 2021. Another important part to stress are the bilateral and regional free trade agreements that Montenegro has. So we have CEFTA 2006. We have relations between EFTA countries and Montenegro since 2012, I believe. Then EU and Montenegro since the SAA entry into force in 2010, Turkey and Montenegro since 2012, and Ukraine Montenegro since 2013. And Montenegro's trade profile, as I already said, Montenegro represents a very liberal, open to trade and services-oriented country, and highly import dependent, and actually, as you know, small economic system. Coverage of imports, of export by imports has been constantly falling since regaining the independence in 2006. Then it was at 30% to GDP. Now in 2021, we have 17.4. Total trade in goods in GDP stands at 60.3%. Actually, as I already said, Union keeps on being Montenegro's largest trading partner, and apart from the Union, there are the CEFTA 2006 signatories. Montenegro exports to the EU and CEFTA 31 and 43% of its goods and services respectively, and imports from EU and CEFTA 46 and 28% of total imports. Another group of important trade partners are China and Turkey. We do not export to China. I mean, who does really in this region? But we import from China around 10% and export to Turkey 5.5% of total export. Those are the numbers from 2021. On the right side of this slide, you can see our potential to export, which is very below potential of all the Western Balkan countries. So that is also the case for Montenegro. We have the largest potential to export aluminium, then some medical equipment, actually medicaments, then electrical energy, then wine. You see all types of products, but you can see on the left side is actually how much we export, which is measured on the x-axis on the bottom, and our potential is on the right side. And as far for some recommendations and conclusions, Montenegro strongly supports its main foreign policy objective, that is to become a fully fledged member of European Union, since we already did our second part of foreign policy objectives, that is to become a member of NATO, which we succeeded in 2017. And we strongly support the benefits that the free trade area with the EU, the CEFTA 2006 brings us, and of course all the benefits that could come from actually implementing the MAPREA that was made during the Berlin process in Sofia in 2020. That would be all. Thank you.
Thank you, Milica, very much for your presentation. Our next speaker is Faruk Hadžić from Bosnia and Herzegovina. He holds a PhD from a Faculty of Economics, University of Tuzla. He is employed as a professor at Sarajevo School of Science and Technology. Furthermore, he is working as a freelance macroeconomic analyst and a consultant. He published papers in the area of macroeconomics, economic policy, international economics, data analytics, and visualization. Please, Faruk, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Petar. Let me try to share my presentation. Just one moment, please. Sorry. Here it is. Okay, I think you will see it now. Almost there. So to load, just mention that this was done with my colleague Haris Chutahia. He's also here presented. And if there is any question after that, we would gladly answer it. Okay, here it is. I think now you can see it. What we have done in our paper is the integration, economic European integration and the region CEFTA experience from our Bosnian and Herzegovinian side. Okay, in general, we have divided our paper in a few segments. First, of course, short introduction, what is in general integration process here in Bosnia and Herzegovina, Western Balkan countries. After that, we have collected some data about trade between Bosnia and Herzegovina, Western Balkans countries, and also Visegrad groups countries, and to see how that trade data moved over the time. After that, we have also discussed about some common market in Bosnia and Herzegovina with the region, and some other implications that can occur in the future. So general integration into EU is a strategic key priority, economic, of course, priority for our country, but we still lag on that road to European Union. We have, there is also established action plan for common regional market for our country. There are also some other initiatives here that are well known. We are still not part of that, but in general, we are speaking about 6 countries here that can be the part of the common regional market as well. Beside Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have neighboring Serbia, Albania, Kosovo, Montenegro, and North Macedonia. When we speak about the main trading partners in Bosnia and Herzegovina, we have established that those trade partners are Germany, Serbia, Croatia, neighboring countries, and Italy. Over 70% of our foreign trade is going to EU member countries. So we are exporting around 70%, but also we are importing significantly from EU member countries. And from 2006, we are part of Central European Free Trade Agreement area, and it is still ongoing. When we analyze this aspect of trade of Bosnia and Herzegovina, we can see, you will see that on next graph, that over the time we have increased export and import, so our trade is booming. especially with the main partners like Germany, Serbia, Croatia, and Italy. And there was significant setback during the COVID-19 pandemic. Probably it is the same in all countries around the European region, but comparing to this indicator, this COVID-19 pandemic moved us several years back. But last year we have managed to rebound from this COVID-19 pandemic and to increase our export because of the strong demand in the EU. Currently, we have also significant level of inflation because of the huge support package from other countries. Now, we have provided, you can see it here, one graph showing increase in export and import from 2006 to 2021, and you can see this red line showing that during the COVID-19 pandemic, it brought us back to the 2016 with the level of trade. But last year we have managed to increase our export to the record level because of the strong demand in EU. Comparing the trade between Bosnia and Herzegovina and CEFTA member countries, it was much higher until mid 2013. After that, we have sharp decline. You will see that as well on next graph. But we can explain that because the Croatia exit the CEFTA area, and they were a significant partner, international trade partner in this case. So that's why we are still not on that level of 2013. You will see that. So you can see here two lines, blue and orange lines, and we are still not on that level from 2013 when the Croatia was the member of the CEFTA area. But the trade between the member states is increasing all the time. Unlike the CEFTA countries, Bosnia and Herzegovina has a lower level of trade with the Visegrad Group countries, Hungary, Czech Republic, Slovakia, Poland. And on next graph, we have managed to collect the data for period of January 2008, June to 2021. And we have managed to see the steady increase in trade between these countries until the COVID-19 pandemic. After that, there is strong recovery with the trade of members of this group. So we are increasing that trade with those group members. You can see how the trade is moving over this period of time with that group of countries. So in general, what is our CEFTA experience here in Bosnia and Herzegovina? We need to achieve those membership goals. We need to remove other trade barriers that are still part of this regime. Serbia is now our most significant trade partner after the Croatia entered the EU, and we still can feel some protectionist measures that is in general slowing our trade with CEFTA countries. When I say the trade, I mean mostly non-tariff barriers that are still possible. We have in our paper managed to provide one example of relations of Bosnia and Herzegovina with Serbia and Kosovo. For example, there were some political and economic disputes and violations in the past, but we have provided this example in our paper. So in general, common regional market is something that we need in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because when you have established common regional market, there will be, of course, flow of people between the countries. There will be no trade barriers on state borders. Companies can then have a huge benefit because they can export faster those products to other destinations, meaning they can use that to boost economies of all countries, not just now, not just in Bosnia and Herzegovina, but as well in the whole region. If we increase the trade, if we increase the export, it would lead to higher growth rates of our GDP, and we can achieve what should be the target of our country, or at least 6% of our GDP. So that is just something that we have managed to collect in our paper, but in general, you can find some conclusions that can be interesting for other stakeholders, because when you know that 70% of your trade is realized in countries from EU, then you can use some stimulating measures to increase and even more boost your trade with other countries. But in general, we need to support good relations with neighboring countries, trade partners, because it would benefit to all countries. There is huge potential, especially with Visegrad groups. That was the case during the COVID-19 pandemic, when the supply chains were broke. After that, most countries tried to find new solutions, new trade suppliers in this region, which helped, to be honest, our country and our companies. They have increased export from our country to EU at least 30%, especially in segment of resources and other materials. So because of that cooperation, regional cooperation to improve it, it will be crucial in improving business environment and reducing trade barriers between the countries. So I have tried to be brief as much as possible to cover everything that we have done in our paper in 12 minutes. So we are open to any kind of comments or questions. Thank you very much.
Professor Hadžić, thank you very much for your presentation. Our last but not least speaker is Martin Chodkovský, offering us the view from Slovakia. Martin is an assistant professor and research fellow. He works at the Department of the Economic Policy, Faculty of Economics in Bratislava, and at the Institute of Economics of the Slovan Academy of Sciences. His work focuses on macroeconomics, especially the inflation, the structure of the economy, and labor market. In the past, he has lectured at several foreign universities and collaborated on various projects oriented toward the policy making. Please, Martin, the floor is yours.
Okay, so thank you very much. I'll just try to share the screen with you so you can see what I see. Okay, hopefully that works. Okay, so this is our view from Slovak Republic. Hello, everyone. I'm sorry I'm actually late, but this is the end of semester at our university, and also other duties need to be fulfilled. So what we are going to do, what I'm going to present here, is in with collaboration of my colleague Karol Morvaj, who is also present here. We will try to present some point of views on this project from our perspective. So as was already mentioned, I'm coming from the Department of Economic Policy, so mainly we are focused on the macroeconomics as well, and this will be our take on this thing will be also from the macroeconomic perspective. So starting with the motivation, so we decided that instead of replicating the whole paper we prepared, we are just rather going to present some recommendations which were listed at the end of the paper. And how is that interesting is that instead of recommendations like creating or telling you what you should do, we are actually going to demonstrate what you shouldn't do, right? So where the country actually made some kind of wrong decision, and now what kind of problems we are facing right now. Also, in comparison to other our neighboring countries in Central Europe, V4 countries, our way to get to the European Union was not that straightforward, and we had these bumps, twists, and turns we had to repair during the process. So eventually, you will see that also this position of being a troublemaker can actually put you into the similar positions as the others. Okay, so let's just start with the first. I'm going to just. Okay, so the first one is that obviously the CEFTA and everything what was connected in terms of international trade was very beneficial for this region. Slovakia was always this small and very open economy, and our international trade was always determined by some kind of determinants like very close economic ties to our former Czechoslovak history. So there was a lot of trade with the Czech Republic, as well as this history of orientation for the production mainly on manufacturing and heavy industries. So instead of kind of dealing with the problems of international trade, what was kind of problematic and what also later on put us into the position of being the troublemaker was this. Unfortunately, politicians and the politicians which were trying to implement this hybrid system of economy, where the politicians would make the somehow not that transparent decisions, and also the orientation of the country was not that clear, which eventually cleared in the elections of 1998. But before that, even our talks with the European Union was halted in 1997 because we were still considered not to be a fully developed democracy. So later on, we can still say that this integration process of Slovakia into the European Union, we can split that into two different, very different periods. Where at the first phase, we were these troublemakers, and in the second phase, after the general change in the government and the approach to economic policy, then we started to be these reform leaders. So what actually this pre-accession period to the European Union did was, it was a quite nice feature that the policymakers are forced to follow certain development of boundaries where you cannot actually make that much of the experiments. Like, so there was this idea of making a Slovak hybrid way of doing the economic policy, whenever the economy was we were trying to achieve some economic growth, we had this incompatibility of this growth with our macroeconomic external balance, which was demonstrated by the huge deficits on the current account balance. That all changed by that election in 1998, and sudden swing in the direction of the country took place, where we started to make a lot of these economic reforms, which later on started to be very attractive for other foreign investors. And eventually, instead of trying to make this economy work in a state it was in the late 90s, we rather started to restructuralize the whole economy and to be more attractive for the foreigners. Again, it's not like the recipe or recommendation what you should do, but later on, that by the time it delivered us some favorable results, later on it is still somehow problematic, and we will need to find some solutions to current problems. By the way, there was this nice research done by one of our colleagues, Professor Luptacik at the Vienna University of Economics, and he was actually trying to compare the development of Slovak economy with other Western European economies, and eventually our business cycles started to sync up somewhere around the year 2002 and on. So we are saying that we achieved this level of traditional market-oriented economy also during that time, and that was already the period of time where we were in the pre-accession to the European Union, and also a lot of these negotiations about our entrance to the Union took place. So just 2 years later, with the rest of the V4 countries, we became a full members of the European Union, and one would say that it's a successful story, but in the upcoming slides you'll see that we now have to deal with other problems. So one of the recommendations we can give definitely is even if you're a full member of European Union, you should probably still try to maintain, or not just the maintain, but rather improve your competitiveness advantages where your economy is based on. So if you just see what is the convergence process of Slovak GDP or Slovak economy towards the European average, you would see that up to the year 2011-12, you can see a huge progress in the convergence, right? So we started somewhere very low, and then after this course of joining the European Union and later on, you can see that a lot of progress was done. But the problem was that from year 2012 on, now we are still struggling with the further convergence up to the averages of European Union. And one of the important factors is that there is a lack of innovation from our domestic environment. We were always in this position of being lagging in the innovations and creating these our domestic growth drivers, but now it turns out it's really a huge problem, and now we are somewhere stuck in that middle income country with no further progress taking place. So our traditional source of any productivity growth was basically based on the import of the technology from somewhere else, right? So because of no innovation from our very limited innovation from our country, the total factor productivity was main driver of the growth, but this productivity was not achieved because we invented something, but rather we just imported it. And later on, and right now, even before the COVID, it started to be obvious that this kind of economic model starts to hit its limits, right? So there is this ceiling we cannot overcome. And you can easily demonstrate that by the lack of growth in the productivity later on in the recent years, where typically you can see on this chart here that typically one of the ways how we can be competitive on the international market, especially in manufacturing, because manufacturing sector is extremely important for Slovak economy. Well, it was that we had this policy of wage cushion, right? So we had quite low unit labor costs, so it was favorable for international companies to come to our country and establish their plants here. While this was quite okay for a long time up to the global financial crisis, but then you can see that from 2015 on, we started to have another problem of labor shortages, right? So there was not enough of human labor, and because a lack of human labor started to push for the wage costs to go up, with no growth in the productivity, your unit labor costs started to be higher and higher, and eventually you lose your competitiveness. So we cannot say that this was kind of unexpected. For a long time, we knew that this pillar of Slovak economy is going to eventually disappear, but we are still kind of surprised how quickly this took place. Okay, so definitely what not to do is just don't base your economy on importing of the foreign technologies. Also try to support the domestic innovation potential. Okay, another thing what you shouldn't probably just do is heavily rely on the structural funds of European Union. Obviously, you are if you are a member of European Union, a lot of capital transfers starts to inflow to your economy, even in that pre-accession period, but even more when you are a regular member. However, these funds are basically they are supposed to be only supplementary source of investment, okay? And our politicians and someone who is responsible for making these policies, they started to understand these EU funds as the basic and core amount of money which public investments can be funded from. So that's not really a good thing, especially if you have no vision how to substitute these EU funds once they'll be gone, right? Because these EU funds, you are eligible for them only up to a certain level of convergence. Once you achieve a certain level of GDP comparable to other EU countries, then you will have lower and lower amount of these EU funds. And the thing is that I would still assume that in Slovakia, we don't have any kind of other idea where to start the financing our public investments. And the same goes for the recovery and resilience plan, right? So that was another way how to support the economy after the COVID-19 will be gone, and how to recover that economy. Well, now it's the main source of any public investment in Slovakia, and there are huge still discussions whether what amount of money we are going to get and whether we are able to implement all of that money and stuff like that. So our recommendation is just try not to rely that heavy on the structural funds from the EU. Also preserve some kind of capital resources from your domestic resources, and not just from somewhere else. And the last thing regarding what not to do is do not solely rely on the FDI way, right? So during the time we started to be a full member, and even a couple of years before that, there was a very favorable environment, especially given the reforms we took for the foreign direct investments to come to the Slovakia. Well, eventually, as you can see with the unit labor costs, this advantage of having those foreign companies here, they can easily just pack their stuff and go somewhere else once it becomes too expensive for them to produce here. So a good thing to do is probably to maintain, or rather just nourish the competitive advantage of your economic model, and continually try to improve it. If I would be just plain simple, I would say that was the economic model of Slovakia 20 years ago, and still I would say the politicians in our economy, in our country, are still relying on the idea that okay, some foreign investors will come and they will solve the problem of whatever it is. The likelihood of repeating such a situation again is, I would say, not equal as it was before. I would say even minimalistic. So it was a favorable time during that period, but it's probably not going to reappear again soon. And one more important thing, what we would recommend in this case, what to do really, is this preparatory phase actually creates a nice opportunity window, for making hard choices and making this reforms which would generally be hard to pass, to make it more accepted by the public. This was actually what happened in that 1999-2000 year, when there was a vision that we eventually one day we will become a European Union full member country. The general public was more tolerable with the reforms and everything, because they had this eventual goal that we will be part of the European Union. So this creates this opportunity window, and you can actually measure that as here on the chart, that with years before the accession, once you need to get your individual chapters aligned with the European Union, you can see that the institutional framework actually improved. What is the problem is that after this, after you become a member of European Union or any other group, this enthusiasm and the willingness to accept the reforms, they will eventually phase out. And then there will be new politicians which will take advantage of that. And if you would just prolong this chart a little bit further than that, you would see that maybe there might be even worse. The Slovakia might be right now in a worse position than it used to be by the time it actually joined the European Union. So use this opportunity once you have this vision that you will become a full member of European Union for that passing of hard decisions and hard reforms, because after that it will be even more challenging to do that. So to conclude our presentation, what can be learned from the case of Slovakia? Well, even the initial handicap of being this troublemaker can actually deliver a successful outcome. And what we would recommend definitely is to also use this opportunity for having very narrowly given the boundaries for the politicians and policymakers to operate when it's given that you are going to be you are doing that for the integration purpose. And one more important thing is that during this phase of economic boom, so when everything is going great in the economy and the unemployment is getting lower and really like rainbows and unicorns, eventually you might be surprised at how easily those advantages and that basic competitive advantages your country has, they may really quickly disappear. So you need to maintain this idea of constantly improving your business environment and trying to be more attractive, more competitive, not just by low labor costs, but also by some other competitive advantages. Because if you don't do that, you will face additional troubles in the future. Okay, that's it from my side. Thank you very much for the attention. And yeah, looking forward to some questions.
Thank you, Martin. Thank you very much for your presentation. Now, given the time, having in mind the time, I will open the floor for the question of the audience. I think that our colleagues from Tirana had a few questions, and they resolved the microphone problems. So if you want to ask something, yeah. Also, Professor Dr. Arva, please. Okay. Just unmute the microphone.
Okay, that's it. So first of all, I would like to congratulate to Professor Hudkovsky, because this was a very bright and very interesting presentation. And if you are permitting, I will contact you later directly, especially as in Hungary, we also are facing the same dilemma, how to fight against the incoming middle income trap. Exactly what you mentioned. Something happened. Okay, so I think that is a very interesting question, and also we also cope the problem how to incite local innovation and how to fight against the middle income trap. So I think that is a very important question. Naturally, we always say that it's plus facile à dire qu'à faire, much easier to say than to do. So anyway, if I would like to ask you that later on, perhaps in written form, you can send me a letter saying how to fight against this middle income trap. How can we avoid, especially I think that you are quite right that this advantage of cheap labor is disappearing, and especially as robotization is coming, perhaps this will be a very important disadvantage for all low-wage countries. How can we avoid to stuck into the middle income trap? That's what I wanted to ask. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for the question. Well, I would say it's $1 million question. Now, if we would just know the very simple recipe to that, it's hard to say, but definitely we shouldn't probably maintain the way it is right now. So obviously what's happening is that given the demography and given the automation, robotization, and all other things, we are not able to maintain the same economic model for upcoming years. But I would say the general recipe is always like we need to start from our domestic perspective. So obviously, because we are lagging in innovation so much, still heavily relying on the import of any kind of technology, creating a favorable environment for new investments in the area, trying to gain some competitive advantage in the highly sophisticated industries. You know, there are in Czech Republic, I think right now they are heavily involved in the pharmaceutical industry, and that could be just one of the many things we can start to focus more narrowly on. You know, it doesn't always have to be just about the manufacturing. I know that the network is already very vast or broad, and it would be hard to actually change the whole direction of the country. But step by step, I think we can start to move on from those very low added value activities and start to focus more on the others. So yeah, but this definitely a question which we'll have to deal in upcoming years at least.
Thank you. Also, colleagues from Tirana have raised the hand, so if you have any questions to delegate, please just unmute. Thank you. Just click the unmute button. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we can
Are
hear
we
you
okay now?
Yeah.
Do you hear us?
Yes.
Wow, that's fantastic. Okay, we are saying hi from Tirana from our students at bachelor degree. This is our international business class, and we have a question. Konstantinos, you can come here.
Hello all. My name is Konstantinos Giorgio. I am a student from University of Tirana and I study for economics. And I have a question regarding the topic that you discussed before. What are the daily challenges that V4 CEFTA faces every day and what solution do they provide? Also, what do you provide? What solution do you provide to improve the small and medium businesses and the enterprise in the Western Balkans? That's my question, and I address it to all of you that are participants here. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Maybe somebody from the Western Balkan region can answer this, and then later give comments on the. Yeah.
Okay, I may take the floor. Regarding okay, the second question, I can how to support the small and medium enterprises. That's a big issue right now in Macedonia because, as Martin mentioned, we heavily relied on FDIs, the cheap labor. Huge companies came to the country, and we failed to connect them with the domestic economy. So still we have the gap where the big companies actually, they're taking the labor so from the small companies, and the small companies fail to connect with the larger companies. For example, the automobile industries right now, it's the leading exporter in Macedonia. And what they're saying is that the small and medium enterprises lack some standardization, some level of quality. So probably the policymakers in Macedonia should take care more how to equip those small and medium enterprises to increase their level of quality. And the second thing is the labor market. The labor market is becoming too tight right now. So the large companies are competing between themselves to get as much as possible workers. So the unemployment is heavily decreasing, and the wages are increasing. And we are coming to that point where it will be more and more expensive for them. And because they came to Macedonia because of the low labor, we are afraid that it will come to that point where they will restructure our employment base. So the people there, they were working in agriculture, in small and medium enterprises. Now they feel attractive. Let's go to the manufacturing, where the big companies are. So they are restructuring our employment base. Once they are going away, we will be left with unemployed people, and we need to handle. I think that's a big issue that we need to handle.
Maybe I can offer an answer from the side of Montenegro. Actually, small and medium enterprises in Montenegro make up 90% of our economy right now. So we had a lot of packages of help during the coronavirus crisis, but they are still struggling to maintain their operations, you know, as well as all around the world. We have some credit lines that the investment fund of Montenegro gives to SMEs. They are mainly focused on innovations, and actually we have another new enterprise, let's say Eco Fund, which actually gives subsidies for green investments, which is all in line with European Green Deal that is focused on the twin transition, so green and digital. But I think the situation is actually the same in the whole region of the Western Balkans.
Thank you very much. Professor Arva, you had something to add?
Yes, very shortly. We never forget that after joining the European Union, the free movement of workers will very much deplete labor force. So in Hungary, I remember that when I was dealing with this problem, or major problem was unemployment. Now today is the lack of workers. So don't forget it that whenever European Union appears, lots of workers are going away, and especially not the most stupid one, but the most innovative persons are going away. So that's why I would like to continue this debate with other colleagues later on. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Arva. Haris, do you have something to add, like especially from the deficit of the workforce from Bosnia and Herzegovina side?
Unfortunately, Fark had to leave due to other obligations, and I'm not an economist. I was co-authoring the part of the ebook from the political perspective, but this is something that really bothers me in Bosnia and Herzegovina, because we have so much of brain drain over here, and I think a couple of days ago, yesterday, there was that UN Security Council session in New York, and the High Representative actually gave some data about Bosnia and Herzegovina, and he said that last year 170,000 people left. They mostly leave for work, unfortunately. The problems that we face over here is that the state actually takes a lot of funds from the workers. So plus the taxes are really high, and as in the other transition countries, you know, that all the procedures are not there to make it easy for businesses. So, and I guess that's something that all of the region faces.
Thank you very much, Haris. Do we have any more questions? We are at the end of the conference. We already broke our time schedule and agenda. So one more question, and that's all we have time to. Yeah, so Albona.
Sorry, I had a question.
Thank you very much, but I cannot.
Just a sec. Firstly, yeah, Valbona, then from the class.
Yes.
Thank you very much for all the presentation, but I cannot open the camera now.
Just a second. Firstly, the Valbona, then the class in Tirana. Sorry, yeah.
Sorry for interruption. Since the Western Balkan initiative was up from the Macedonian speaker, I would like to ask, this initiative is firstly for the Macedonian. We have the initiative of the Berlin and CEFTA, and now we have the third one, like the Open Balkan initiative. What didn't have CEFTA and Berlin, so we could have a third initiative between the same countries? And I would like to ask the Montenegro and Bosnia and Herzegovina speakers, why don't they want to be part of this initiative?
Okay, thank you, Valbona, for the question. It's excellent question. And I think this last initiative, Open Balkan initiative, is actually extension of the Berlin process and CEFTA. And it's envisioned to be even more integration. So if we put it at the extremes, CEFTA is the lowest level of integration, the common regional market should be the highest level of integration, where we are not concerned only about the trade, but also we are concerned about coordinated policy making. So how to attract more investments, not only in Macedonia, but together as a region, how to accelerate the trade, not only inside Macedonia, but also as a region. So the thing is, I think the Open Balkan Initiative, it's more further integration, but everything depends on the political will for now. I think sooner or later, everyone will understand that regionalization will be beneficial for all of us. There will be challenges, but looking V4, looking the European Union, we can see that that integration, larger market size, because the companies can come to Macedonia, but now they understand that the market is too tight. So they will choose probably Serbia as an option, because over there is a larger pool of workers. So once we understand that competition between us is difficult for us, then we will go further with regionalization.
Yeah, I can also speak a bit on behalf of Bosnia and Herzegovina. The thing is, the lack of support for Open Balkan in Bosnia and Herzegovina, especially at the beginning, was actually not economic, but it was a political question. And it's not that we didn't support it, but some of the structures in Bosnia and Herzegovina actually had a strong opinion that we didn't need something to replace the Berlin process, because it's the Berlin process is actually about the region's integration. And we were kind of afraid that the EU is using Open Balkan to replace the European integration for the countries of the Western Balkans. And that's it. My personal opinion is that it's actually a step closer to the European market, and it's a nice training ground for our economies. But I think that we are actually also, I'm talking on behalf of some of the structures here, that they are afraid of that some of the countries included in the Open Balkans will take lead and take us somewhere where we don't want to be. And that's only that's why we are a bit reserved towards the Open Balkan. That's it. Thank you.
If I may add from outside, if Mirisa allowed me, I just like to mention that in Montenegro we are also divided, but there are a lot of explanation after careful reading of interstate agreement signed in December last year and published in Official Gazette of Serbia. Then we see all details, legally speaking, about what we are talking, that there are some reserves, as in Bosnia, not only for the economic reason, but mostly for the political reason. So we are not so happy with the federation of IDs, but that terminology simulating some kind of single market with common borders, supranational control, financing, and we are not so happy to see it without EU. So I think now EU is collecting data, as they call it. So we will see their approach. They are not declared their approach still. I think Commissioner explained it more as a kind of support, more personal, not institutional. But they will definitely do it soon. And what we are expecting that they will continue with any kind of Berlin process, whenever how they will call it, because Czech presidency, next presidency, sorry, already announced that they will be host for next Berlin Summit conference on early autumn. So I think it is that period where European Union should decide what to support, because it is not possible to support common regional market with 6 and open Balkan still with 3. They need to somehow collect us together again and decide what they will support. I think any model hardly can exist without EU and EU technical assistance and financial support, if we like to be honest. So we will see. In any case, still, I think EU did not decide what to support, and we are living in kind of, without official decision. I also like to see more economy, less politics. But what is our target is European single market, not some other standards. I think it is kind of common position, so we will see how it will go. We are running towards the end of our session, and I'm sorry for this passing over the scheduled time. I like to thank you, all of you, for your patience and extending time for our online event. But as professor, I will allow still a very small time for colleagues from Albania. If you like to delegate just shortly some questions, and then we will respond, and that's it for today. So please, the stream is your colleagues from Tirana.
Yes, I had a question.
Yes.
So I wanted to ask the Hungarian representatives. There have been like 2 major investments in Albania. Hungarian companies bought 2 banks and 2 telecommunication companies here. How do you comment this increase of interest of Hungary in Albania?
Professor Arva.
Thank you very much. A very good question. I really don't know. So it's, I'm not an expert of that 2 companies. Anyway, I don't want to get into the details because I don't know the real answer. So if you are going to write me a letter, I promise I'm going to look around and I have some interviews and I will write to the right answer for you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Professor Ara. This was a very honest and very concrete answer. So regards to our young colleagues from Tirana, I'd like to thank you, all of you, for your contributions, for quality of our presentations, for your time, for our project. And I'd just like to announce that we are very close to finishing our ebook. Soon I will send you for the final confirmation all the chapters, and I will work on conclusion after that. So we are approaching according to plan towards the end of our project with the final conference in Podgorica. So I like to on this way officially conclude our session, and stay safe, and see you, do hope next time in person live. All the best.
Bye.